Three Republicans will square off Tuesday in Indiana as they look to represent their state in the U.S. Senate. As part of our Local Matters series, we're getting an inside look at races across the country ahead of November's midterm elections. Congressman Todd Rokita and Luke Messer, as well as businessman Mike Braun, are running for a chance to challenge Democratic Senator Joe Donnelly. Eric Berman is chief political correspondent and State House bureau chief for WIBC Network Indiana. He joins me now from Indianapolis. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So what should we know about each of these candidates ahead of Tuesday's primary?
Well, the three of them would all like you to know that they support President Trump. The running theme of this campaign has been all of them have tried to emphasize, I'm the most supportive of the president. No, I am. No, I am. That has been the running theme through all of it. Todd Rokita and Luke Messer, as you mentioned, are the two incumbent congressmen, one from West Central Indiana, one from East Central Indiana. They both came into the House a little bit at the same time, one of them in 2010, one in 2012, but they've had very similar and conservative voting records. Mike Braun served 2 terms in the state legislature, resigned shortly after announcing his Senate campaign. He's been de-emphasizing that and emphasizing his business background, arguing, just like the president, I'm running as an outsider. I can shake up Washington and fix things that are broken.
Well, this has been a race full of personal attacks. What can you tell us about those and how it's affected the campaign?
Well, it's driven the campaign very negative, to say the least. It started very early. Mike Braun got into this race in, I believe, August. Rokita and Messer were already in and were already firing shots at each other. Mike Braun said he got in part because people were telling him, look, we don't like these attacks. There's a middle lane. It didn't take long before all three of them were firing at each other. Todd Rokita has accused the other two of not being sufficiently supportive of the president. It's interesting because Messer had endorsed Jeb Bush in the primaries in 2016. Todd Rokita had endorsed Marco Rubio in the primaries in 2016. They both came around in the general election, but now they're both, in particular Rokita versus Messer, saying, well, you don't really support the president. So that's been the main theme there. There have been shots at Luke Messer's wife. There have been shots at Mike Braun's voting history. He voted Democratic for something like 30 years before becoming a Republican state legislator. You name it, it has come up. It's been accurately called the nastiest primary race in the country.
Wow. Well, aside from the attacks, what are the main issues that Indiana voters care about that will help them choose their candidate?
Indiana voters, certainly in a Republican primary, are concerned with the Second Amendment, concerned with abortion. All three candidates have rock-solid credentials there, and so there hasn't been a lot to choose from there. One of the big differences that has come up, the two incumbent congressmen voted opposite ways on the omnibus bill, which averted the government shutdown and kept the government funded through October 1st. Luke Messer voted for that bill. He said it was what President Trump asked him to do. We needed to support the military and keep them funded. Todd Rokita voted against it, saying it was a bad bill, pointing to the president saying he didn't like having to sign it. Mike Braun has the advantage of not being in Congress. He didn't have to vote on it one way or the other, but he said it was a bad bill as well. So that's been a point of differentiation among the three of them. Basically, it's been about establishing conservative credentials. There's been not as much about specific issues because, frankly, there aren't a lot of issue differences among them, so much as who can you count on as a reliable conservative vote.
Well, as you mentioned, each of these candidates has tried to align himself with President Trump, even though the president has not made an endorsement. How are they each trying to do that? And is it likely to be a winning strategy for Tuesday's primary?
It would be a winning strategy, I think, if there weren't so little difference among them. They can all claim to have supported the president. It's more a question of who can you accuse of not supporting him. The Rokita campaign has accused Luke Messer of being a never-Trumper. He denies it. He's endorsed him in the general. Mike Braun's taken criticism from both of them because, again, he had a 38-year voting record as a Democrat. He says that's because of the nature of local politics in his part of Indiana. But the argument has been, well, okay, so you were a registered Democrat, we'll give you that one, but you didn't donate to the president either. You didn't support the president during the campaign. campaign, you're not a true Trump supporter. The Rokita campaign was endorsed by the Indiana chairs of the Trump-Pence campaign in 2016. That's turned into an attack going the other way because he had some signs going up saying endorsed by Trump-Pence. Luke Messer pointed out, and the Trump campaign pointed out, no, you're not supported by the campaign. You're supported by these two guys.
Well, the incumbent Senator Joe Donnelly is running unopposed for the Democratic nomination. How is the Republican nominee expected to fare against Donnelly in the general election?
It's expected to be a very close race. This is one of the most closely watched races in the country, as you know, in terms of which party takes control of the Senate. Joe Donnelly is in his first term. He was elected in something of a fluke in 2012. Richard Lugar, the long-standing and respected Republican senator, lost in his primary to a candidate who went on to implode in the general election. It's very much a red state. Joe Donnelly would start out at a disadvantage, but you've got to assume that he's looking at all the punches being thrown in the primary and thinking, yeah, keep it up, guys. Even so, it's going to be a tight race. A lot of it, I assume, is going to depend on what the president's standing is in November. We've seen him struggling in Indiana as well as across the country. He's still above water in Indiana, but not as popular as when he won handily in 2016. Depending on where his popularity ratings are by November, I think that's going to have a lot to do with where this race goes.
All right, we'll be watching. Eric Berman with The View from Indiana for us. Eric, thank you.